back. It's been a while, a bit sort of few and far between lately, but that's because I'm getting ready to move to my new flat as soon as it's bloody built by Chris Nicholson. But hey ho, that's another story. Plus, as you can probably tell, I have had another cold. I don't know why I keep getting them this year. It's really irritating, but more on that at some point in my life when I'm interested in doing it. Now, a couple of months back, I did the top 10 best films, and I have been thinking about it, and I've come to the conclusion that I can now do the opposite. So today, we're going to be going through what is my opinion the top 10 most terrible films that I have ever seen. Now, this is going to fall into four different categories. The Sorry, I'm having to read my notes on this. The first six, so 10 till 6, are the trailer was better, but that's, it could have been a much better film. 5 and 4 are really bad. 3 and 2 are I want to pull my eyes out, and then obviously number 1 is the worst film. Now I'll go through these and I'll explain why each one is as nominated onto my list. Now, as I've said, these are films that I have personally seen, and also I will never ever want to own a copy of it or see it in any way, shape or form. There is only one, actually no, I'm telling a lie. There's only one film on here which I did own that I did actually get rid of, but I will come to that in a minute. So without further ado, here is number 10. In at number 10, we have The Hangover Part 1. After this film, I didn't actually want to go and see Part 2 and 3 because it's effectively just the same dull film all over and over again. If you haven't seen it, the story revolves around a stag do where all the people involved go on, well, an American stag do in Vegas and get really drunk, and it's everything that kind of happens afterwards. Now, as I said, the trailer was meant to look really good, and it was a complete letdown. So that is number 10. In at number 9, we have Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. This is the film that I actually did have a copy of, but as I said in my favourites film, well, my favourites list I should say, I actually had a copy of this and then I threw it away. Well, I say threw it, I actually mean that in the literal sense. I actually threw it to see how far it would fly, both the case and the DVD itself. It flew a good distance from where I was. This film was a complete letdown. I had never really seen, because at the time Terminator 2, I was only about 10 at the time, so I wasn't allowed to see it, and I wasn't, well, I didn't know anything about anything at the time when Terminator 1 came out because I was just bored. So that film was a complete letdown. It may as well just, as I said at the time, they should have just called it Carry On Terminator because it was just pointless. Nick Stolt can't act for his life. Claire Danes is even worse, and I can't remember the name of the actress who played the TX, but the idea of the TX is really terrible. They should have just gone with another T800 that was just slightly better, but not the way that they had it. It can turn, completely flip itself around. It's got the weapons bit I liked. I actually quite like that, and the ability to change its features, fair enough, but everything else on it is just kind of so that's my reason why. In at number 8, we have Prometheus. Prometheus is the prequel to the Alien saga. Now, this film was supposed to be brilliant in visual effects, don't get me wrong, it looks brilliant, but the storyline was just atrocious. It was, people just suddenly say, oh, by the way, there's all this stuff lying around. We're going to make a big hype about it, and never once mention anything about it. Like, for instance, the chamber where they find all the black goo. What was that? All that the engineer's body. Well, where did all the other ones go? They can't have just died in there. There'll be bits left if there's one of them left outside. The scene after she's had the alien taken out of her, and then she has herself stapled back up. It's kind of like, you shouldn't be able to run after having a C-section after. Yeah, it is a bit difficult, I'm told. I've seen one born every minute, I know all about that. But Prometheus should have been much better, so Ridley Scott, you failed. Number 7, we have Predators. Predators is pretty much what it sounds like. It's the old alien, idea that we saw from the original Arnie film. That species, no aliens in it apart from them. Um, a load of people get taken away to a distant planet, which is effectively a giant game reserve, and they are hunted down one by one, which is effectively what Predator was. The only difference being is that these people are armed with their own weapons, etc., and sort of skills. So, for instance, you have one of them is a Yakuza, one of them is a. It's been a while since I've seen it, by the way. One of them's a military bloke, which is Adrian Brody. Then you've got a serial killer who's a doctor who was Topher Grace, who was Venom from Spider-Man 3. And then Lawrence Fishburne, who was in it just because it's Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne's in it, and it was a complete letdown. I don't remember who made it, but whoever it did, you should be ashamed of yourself. Following on from that, we can then say Aliens vs Predator and Aliens vs Predator Requiem. Out of the two, I'm going to say Requiem is the worst. Out of all the main characters, I could not care about a single one of them. That's the problem with some of these films. In them, you kind of develop an emotional attachment to the characters. So, for instance, Ripley from Aliens. You form an attachment with her because of what she's gone through, and then what she's going through to get Newt back. But in this, you just could not care about a single one of them. One of them just wants to get laid. One's just come out of the army, and she's like, "Oh, my husband's dead. Oh, don't worry, I'm gonna get laid to this bloke." And it's just kind of, oh god. And in the end, they find the Predator's shoulder plasma caster, and it's Wayland Utami who happens to come across it, and there's a, yes, it is not of this world. We shall make our fortune out of it. And it's kind of, oh, for God's sake. And the Pred alien just looks terrible. And their argument is, well, we're going to have a Predator with 2 guns and 2 knives on its arms. It's kind of, really? Really? You failed. Don't make any more Aliens vs Predator films. I beg you. Okay, moving into the next two. These are films that are just genuinely really bad. So, starting at number 5, we have Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin is a film starring George Clooney, Chris O'Donnell, and Alicia Silverstone, with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze. That's all I have to say about that film. It was atrocious, and George Clooney was terrible. Joel Schumacher, I heard after he made this film, they did the test screening. Someone actually shouted out "Death to Schumacher" after this. I'm not going to make any good points about the film because there are exactly bagel. At number 4, we have The Other Guys, starring Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell. This is a film about 2 police officers who are just so inept that whatever they do, that everything just goes to hell. And it stars the king of bad remakes, Mark Wahlberg, and Will Ferrell. I don't see the whole appreciation against Will Ferrell. I mean, Anchorman wasn't very good. I really didn't like that film. I thought it was really, really dull. The only part of it I liked was the bit with the Sex Panther. But in the other guys, it's also got Ava Mendes, who is about as charming as a piece of wood. This is one scene where Will Ferrell's character was actually a pimp back in college, and he met up with Ava Mendes' character. She kind of put him back on the straight and narrow. And after that, it's kind of like, oh yeah, we're gonna do all this crazy stuff, and it's kind of like, oh god, it really doesn't work. So burn your copy if you have it. Okay, at number three, these are films that were so bad I wanted to pull my eyes out in protest. Number three, we have The Green Hornet. The Green Hornet version starring Seth Rogen. I actually don't know the name of the other character. No, the other actor, I should say. This film was so monumentally bad that when me and my wife watched it, she fell asleep halfway through, and I hadn't even noticed that she was asleep. Not because of the fact that, I wasn't watching, it was just the fact that I had fallen asleep as well, because it was so monumentally terrible, that film. At one point, you see the car that they have broken in half, and it's still driving. Now, I'm no car mechanic or anything like that, but I'm pretty certain that won't happen for much longer, because in that car, the petrol tank was right at the back, not the front. So there was no way that car could have continued moving also up a flight of stairs, because bearing in mind the front in American cars, the bonnet is much bigger than the car before the front wheel starts. So that is just not possible. Shame on you, Seth Rogen. In at number two, we have Bridesmaids. Bridesmaids is a film of the title. A lady's getting married and she asks her friend to be the head bridesmaid, and that's where it all goes wrong. In most films, as I've said, you kind of form an attachment with the character because you either like him or whatever. But this lady I hated so much because she is such a miserable cow that it's always me, 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 me. Everyone else has mucked me around. Oh, oh, I'm a wreck, blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of like, you're not. You're just a twat and no one likes you because you're a twat. It's just a simple fact on this film. So, if you happen to find this film funny, I don't know, even the bit where they've all eaten I think it's like Mexican food or something, and then they all have a dump and throw up all in this wedding shop. That wasn't even funny. I was just sitting there, I was kind of like, right, is this film going to get any better? Turns out it really, really doesn't. So, if you have a copy, keep it to yourself. And here it is, number one. The film I hate the most in the world, bar none, is none other than John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John starring in Grease. I had to watch this film 12 times in 2 weeks as part of a college class, and even then, it had nothing to do with it. This film is so terrible to me. I mean, it's considered a classic, I'm told, but I hate this film so much that I physically have to leave the room, nay, the house, if it's on, because it is so bad and I really hate it that much. If you have a copy of it, please don't tell me you've got one. Please don't put it on if I come round or anything. Don't mention it, because I can only do up to 15 minutes on YouTube and I would like to make this properly. So, do me a favour and don't mention this film to me ever in your life. Keep it to yourself. Keep it hidden in a box under the sink, surrounded in concrete. Don't ever mention it to me. Well, there you have it. As I said, this is my top 10 hated and most terrible films that I would never ever want to own. If you have your own opinion on them, you're more than welcome to comment and I will read them. I've actually included all the links for all the films that I've mentioned in the description bar below. If you think you've got a film that's worse than any of the ones I've mentioned and it's mainstream film, come ahead and tell me, because I would actually like to hear some criticism on this one. Just not about myself, really, just on the films. So, I'm going to go and get washed and I will speak to you in a bit. Bye.